Hello friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I mentioned in a recent live stream how I don't always automatically do water changes, and today's a day where I would normally do water changes, but I wanted to share with you the thinking process that goes into whether or not water changes are going to take place. It's not something that I do just sort of superstitiously or automatically, and I know I talked about that in the video. I think I called it urban legends or superstition. But let me just go over with you the thinking process, what I do, what I consider before I do a water change. Let's go ahead and get into it. Usually the first thing I'll do is I'll do some tests of the aquariums, and I've been using these test strips from the aquarium co-op. And there's one for ammonia and one that's a multi-test strip. And I use those as the first step before determining whether or not a water change is actually needed. But before even doing that, I really encourage you to take a minute and test the actual tap water. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's go ahead and test the tap with some of these aquarium co-op strips, and I think you're supposed to leave them in the water for 3 seconds, and then it sits for a minute. So I'm going to speed this up so you don't have to sit for a minute and wait for the results. Okay, 3 seconds. Then you don't shake it off, you just lay it down somewhere. While we're at it, let's go ahead and test ammonia. This is the co-op ammonia test strips, and let's go ahead and do an ammonia test on the tap. Some fresh water, and with this one you go 10 seconds and ready to read instantly. Ammonia is 0, as I suspected. It's actually even lighter than 0. Pretty good, huh? No ammonia. Some cities do use ammonia in their in the water that they send to your homes. It is apparently an accepted way of sterilizing or keeping water drinkable. Now it's been a minute, so let's go ahead and check out the other test results. All right, so you have a very easy to read test strip here on the back. Hope you can see this. See this 25, 10. Yeah, I have 0 nitrate coming out of my tap, which is a good thing. There's 0 nitrate, 0 nitrite. Water is incredibly hard. pH is low. And the buffer is very, very low. Your KH, a little hard to read here on the pH. It looks like it's pretty orange though. It looks like it's like 6-8 out of the tap. And chlorine, interestingly, is the only one I'm getting a reading on that is any significance, and that one is just very lightly. Dechlorinate, yeah, it's just barely in the dechlorinate area. Just sneaks in there. So obviously they're using a little bit of chlorine or chloramine to make the water drinkable, but everything else is good, so I don't have to worry about nitrates creeping up because I'm getting too much nitrate out of my tap. So that's a good thing to know, and something everyone that keeps fish should know, what their tap is producing, and really check it from time to time, because cities will change what they're doing based on weather and right, lots of rain or what's going on with the water system. They might superchlorinate, things like that. Just keep that in mind. So as you can see, my tap water is not really a concern. So it's not going to be driving how much water I change or anything like that. It's a bit of a non-issue actually. So as long as I match the temperature and I treat it before it goes into the tank, I'm in good shape. Now this tank here is averaging around 20 parts per million, which is actually really good for an ammonia factory like this. Usually when you have a lot of African cichlids together, it's an ammonia factory. However, this tank is running low on nitrates, and maybe it's because of the water volume, the sump that's being assisted by a very large canister, fluval canister FX6. Bottom line is I have low nitrates here and not a need based on test results for a water change. However, I do have a fish. If you look at that phoenix right there, that's a phoenix, a specially bred hybrid from the Cichlid shack over in Arizona. And he's looking at me with his left eye because his right eye is a little bit foggy right now. And so he's a little bit reluctant to look at me from that side since he probably doesn't see me as closely. Let's see if we can get a look at it. Maybe he's not going to show it to us. But he has a little bit of a foggy eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a water change in this tank, because I found from experience that the best treatment for foggy eye is, of course, fresh water. So even though the other fish are healthy and not showing any signs of foggy eye or anything like that, I am going to go ahead and help that phoenix out with some fresh water. So this tank's going to get roughly about a 25% to 40% water change, which is a lot of water for a 210 gallon. There he is. You can see that eye there just for a moment. He sort of had it pointed at us. If we go over to the larger, the cichlids I acquired recently from the Cichlid shack, these fish are around 30 parts per million. Very large cichlids in a 55-gallon aquarium. They're all doing well. They're all active, healthy, eating pretty good. However, I did notice they were doing a little bit of a shimmy. They were rubbing themselves up against rocks a little bit. And I did notice a little bit of a stringy poop coming out of the Taiwan reef, who's hiding up there in the corner. So what I'm doing is I'm treating this tank. I'm treating it with a little bit of Paracleanse. It's a Fritz product for parasites. So even though it's approaching where I would normally want to go ahead and do a water change, I am not going to do a water change on this, because while in the middle of that treatment, you don't change the water. So this one is not going to get a water change. I'll finish the Paracleanse treatment and then give them a good water change. This tank here is running around 20 parts per million. Not bad. But again, I have a little guy, one of the little green tears. It looks like one of the Nicaraguan cichlids. These Nicaraguans right here, they're a little bit aggressive. And I think that they've been nipping on the green tears. One in particular. The other two are fine. But this little guy right here happens to be the prettiest one. It has the best markings on the face. He's got a little bit of a tail damage. The other fish are in great shape. But because of that, again, I want to provide the fish with some fresh water. So this tank will get about a 30% water change, even though nitrates would seem to indicate that I could go a little bit longer. In this 90-gallon tank, I'm also running at around 20 parts per million, which again would probably indicate that I could wait another week. But as some of you know who follow my channel, I have some Geophagus suriminensis who are really into nipping at each other, and that's creating some tail damage. So because of that, I'm making a point, there they go, I'm making a point of ensuring that this tank has fresh water, and so I'll be going ahead and doing a 20 to 30% water change on this tank, even though test results would indicate that that's not really needed, but again, there are other circumstances besides just test results, which is the point of this video. Love the look of that Jack Dempsey. Still juvie, and he goes totally black sometimes, and he'll go totally white other times. Beautiful fish. Behind this tank, I have a grow out tank. I'll show it to you. I have a huge bubbler in here, by the way. It's like a disc bubbler, because I had to put a large plexi lid on the entire aquarium, and of course that cuts off a lot of oxygen. Not sure if it would make a real big difference with the two hang-on backs I have on here, but I decided to go ahead and super aerate the aquarium with a large bubbler. I think you can't go wrong with too much oxygen, right? Is there such a thing as too much oxygen? I guess if it was all oxygen, we'd have a problem. So here's a grow out tank with little juvies like this golden ram you see right there. Beautiful little fish, and some wild caught cardinal tetras, some ember tetras, and an assortment of plants. Interestingly enough, despite having the plants, this tank tends to run the highest in nitrates. The plants love it. I'm not sure if the fish like it, but I'll go ahead and give this tank about a 20% water change. And maybe the food. I mean, there are some tabs in here for this plant, and there are also some Easy Green from the Aquarium Co-op. So maybe that has a little bit of nitrogen in it for the plants. I don't know. This tank does run a little bit high on the nitrates. So I'll give it a little bit of water change. And I have another tank, a little hospital tank, just to the right, where a Eureka Red is currently living. And this Eureka Red was a terror for quite some time. And it was doing fine in the 210 gallon. And I went to have lunch and came back, and somebody just beat him, gave him a royal beating. Not sure why. I didn't see any of it. I didn't even see him being chased by anybody. I could guess at what fish might have done it. I have several suspects, but his tail was beaten down, nipped down all the way to the meat. The back of his dorsal was in really bad shape, and his right eye was really messed up. So he's in here recovering, and because he's recovering, he's going to get at least a 50% water change, just to keep his water nice and clean, even though his nitrates are below 20 parts per million. So that's the thinking process. Again, I don't just do a water change automatically because it's water change day. I take a look at what's going on with each tank, and then I make decisions based on the circumstances. And if I can take a week off, I'll take a week off and actually changing the water, because of course when you do a water change, you are risking creating stress for your fish, and you're also risking the chance, which I know it's rare, but you are risking the chance of making a mistake, not conditioning your water, not temperature matching, something like that. And so it does, no matter how careful we try and be, there is a bit of a risk factor in water changes. And so if you don't need to do one, don't do one unnecessarily just because it's water change day. Go through a little bit of thought on it, and I think overall your fish will be happier because they'll be messed with less, and you'll be more on top of things. And those are my thoughts on the subject. So let me know what you think below. What determines whether or not you do a water change? And I'd like to hear below. We all learn from each other on this channel, right? So comment below, let me know, and do join me on Saturday for the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. We'll talk more about this and other subjects. Big shout out to the Patreon members of the Garage Gang, and a big thank you for your help in your support of the channel. Very, very grateful, and also very grateful to everybody who has taken the time to sub and push the channel up over 40,000. All right, so that's it for me, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. You really do rock. You are the best. And that's it for me. Bye-bye.